And you're on.
Hello, team. Welcome to this afternoon's, depending on where you are, this afternoon's web conference. We're going to do a demo of the Eaglet Eye Surface Profiler, and we're going to spend about 45 minutes going through stuff. Jump in on the chat line anytime you want, and we'll keep an eye on the chat line and raise your questions when they come through. So let's get her rolling. So the folks that are up on the stage today are, okay. All right. Our Reinier Stortelder, the Eaglet CEO, he's going to be up in a little bit, and then a little later. Reinier Stortelder is our head of professional affairs. They're both over in Holland, and Reinier is going to do the blocking and tackling for this webinar. He's the guy that knows the system the best. He and Arnie know the system a lot better than I do, so he'll take over and show you what's going on. This is Tom Schoen. I'm the GM of North America. I'm going to be the MC today, and our special guests are Dr. Brain Tompkins from the UK and Dr. Barry Leonard from Southern California. So let's give a round of applause for Dr. Tompkins and Dr. Leonard. Appreciate their involvement today. So the agenda for today is going to be, Arnie's going to talk a little bit about scleral topography, what we've learned over the last 5 years, why this is becoming a very important topic, a very important technique, and ultimately why you should consider a product like the Eaglet Eye Surface Profiler. I'm going to introduce the device itself. I'm going to do a quick overview. Then we're going to have Brain Tompkins walk through one of the cases he did for us a little while back. That's case number 1. Case 2 will be Dr. Leonard, and he'll walk through his case, and I think you guys will learn a lot there. Then Reinier takes over, walks you through the major steps of the ESP, the patient prep and how you acquire the image, how you analyze the data, and how you use the first fit algorithms. He'll walk you through about 5 different examples, and then we'll wrap it up. Tom and Arnie and I will be back towards the end of the 45 minutes. So again, please, everybody jump in, use the chat line. We obviously couldn't have everybody talk at the same time. So we're sorry about that, but use the chat line and we'll keep an eye on it. All right, Arnie, you are up.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah. So next slide, please. Yes, thanks. Welcome to this webinar. We're very excited to have this here today. I'll spend a little time on scleral topography. I mean, it's a very new kind of thing that has opened up only a couple of years ago, and before, so say 6-7 years ago, people were reliant on anterior segment OCT, and then with a lot of work, you can deduce some information about the scleral shape.
Hold on, Arnie, going to interrupt you. Quite many people are saying they cannot see any video or hear any audio. So
okay,
let's work it out technically.
All right. Yeah, so where do we start? I'm not sure.
I can hear and see.
Yeah, we can hear and see. So Tom, could you come online again, please, or share your screen again, please?
It's shared right now. I'm running.
But let's do that again to see if we can.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear it. I don't know if anybody can hear me.
Quite a lot of people are telling that it is good as well. So
okay, well, let's just push ahead. All right.
Looks like people are complaining are from way abroad. So
okay. Okay, sorry guys.
It's David Berko.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Little glitch. We'll pick up where we left it. So 5 years ago, the eye surface profiler came on the scene, and we're very happy, of course, to have contributed from the very get-go with the first device that measures the not just the cornea but also the sclera, to a lot of discovering work around. So what is that actual shape of the sclera? And of course, one of the main things that's come out very loudly about that is that the sclera is highly asymmetric. It's actually quite complex, and it is impossible to predict the shape of the sclera from extrapolation from the cornea out. And so with that, we started collaborating with lots of labs and integrate lots of lenses. And you know, and this is where we are right now, integrating 19 different labs with many lenses and more coming very fast. And one of the things that you can see, and we're so excited about, is that the lens manufacturers, the labs actually, are now coming out with more customized designs. It's become really mandatory that you have a clear knowledge of the scleral shape in order to fit those more customized lenses. And so there's a virtuous cycle going on here with the eye surface profiler reinforcing the position of the practitioner and also that of the labs to come with ever more advanced lens designs. And there's more people now saying that in a couple of years from now, the diagnostic lens will be a thing of the past, and we'll just look back at it and say, well, how did we do it back in the day? So that's my little bit of sharing. I hand it over back to you, Tom. Thanks.
All right. So a quick overview of the Eaglet Eye Surface Profiler. The points of differentiation in our mind are, well, some of these are differentiated and not, but we get up to a 20 millimeter scan of the eye surface, so that encompasses obviously the cornea, the limbus, HVAD, and well out into the sclera. So with folks these days fitting average sclerals of, I don't know, 15 to 18 millimeters, it's plenty of diameter for that purpose. We do that in a single shot. We don't have 3 different gazes that require you to get good images in all 3 gazes to merge them. We get up to 20 millimeters in one single shot. Now, we do recommend taking 2 or 3 shots while you've got the patient ready, but we don't necessarily blend those or merge those images. So it's a single shot. Lots of data going up. You're going to see, even with a fast connection, you're going to wait about 5 seconds for information to come back down to the cloud. That's a big file to send back and forth. The accuracy of the eye surface profiler is 2 microns on the cornea, 10 microns on the sclera, which is obviously really good. The other real big point of differentiation with Eaglet is we are lab neutral. In other words, we will work with any lab that will work with us. And I'll show you later on the number of labs, the number of lens designs we have in the algorithms, in the software, the ESP for that. That includes 40 plus lens designs across 17 labs. At least, maybe it's 18 now. It's hard to keep track of this thing. So I am going to turn it over to Dr. Stortelder and let him go from there.
All right, thank you. Everyone can see my screen now, I hope. So basic profilometry and scleral lens fitting. I will start with the case from Brain Tompkins. So today we have Brian and Barry here, and Barry is rather technical and Brian is not. And what we would like to show is that you can use the Eaglet when you're very technical, so when you like designing lenses yourself, or you just give it away and please help me. So that's Brian. It's your turn now, and I will move on to the next slide. And after that, I'm going over all of these topics.
Yeah, so if you can hear me, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Put your hands up if you can hear me. And this is a Saturday evening for me here, so cheers to everybody. And anybody distracted in any way, shape or form, it's because there is a really famous horse race currently on. And in another Zoom meeting, I've got about 20 people all there, and we've all put bets on various horses. So this is a really important gin, hoping to wish luck to Tiger Roll. So he should be winning. He's the favorite, and he's my horse. So therefore. But from the point of view of the Eaglet Eye, so Arno, this weird, strange Dutchman, turned up to me about 6, 7, 8 years. I don't know, Arno, you can tell me how long ago, and said, look, I've got this device that measures slightly wider out than the cornea, and would it be of any use? So I thought, well, yeah. We were starting to build with toric lenses, with scleral lenses around that time. And so I had a look at it, and he brought this device out of his car that was stuck together almost with glue and cardboard. And I've watched and followed through everything as we've gone on. Sean is one of our long-standing patients. He's got nystagmus, so his best vision is about 636 in English language. Americans and others will have to translate to something, but it's not particularly brilliant. So he's well within incapable of driving, etc., etc. But he manages to function. When I first saw him, he was about 14, and of course, getting any form of measurement for Sean is really difficult because the nystagmus rocks his eye from side to side. But with patience and Sean's real dedication, we got some really good ESP images on the version of the ESP that we had at that point. And ultimately, that we gave to Reinier and the team. And we'd been trying to hand fit some lenses and haven't had the time to put some together, but everything was really toric. He's naturally about a 6-cylinder, and the 6-cylinder on the cornea has really completely transposed into the sclera. So he's one of those high sills, but it isn't like a keratoconic high sill, whereby the sclera can be relatively normal. And these days we realize relative is a strange thing to say, because they're all very, very unusual these days. We know from greater levels of work from the Eaglet. But ultimately, we were trying to fit from fitting sets and getting further and further and further and more complicated with the lenses. And we were having lots and lots of multiple designs, and it just wasn't working. And every single design was digging in the wrong places, etc. So in the end, we got some really good images. Sean will just stay still for a couple of seconds sometimes. And once we got that image, I sat down with Reinier and we did a couple of links on the technology at the time, which was before the Zoom explosion that's gone post-COVID. And we talked through the best options, and his best advice at that time was to get a by elevation, by toric in those days, now by elevation. And we sent that data to the laboratory. In the UK, we're using in the Bausch laboratory, logically, for Zenlens, and ultimately they said, yeah, fine. So we transposed the information from the ESP over to the lens. And oh man, I wish Sean and I had been born 5 years earlier, because that made life so much more simple. It was just so much easier to say, here is the ESP data, here is the lens that we'd like you to make, because that lens fitted like a dream. And Reinier was smart and clever, wrote it all up into the paper using the data from us. But ultimately, that saved hours and hours of trial, order, trial, order, trial, order. So I kind of applaud the guys for their help. So if Barry, being the genius that I know he is, can work them out himself, fantastic. But for myself, who works in a different way, my mind isn't mathematical, and my colleagues and I just absolutely adore the guys over in Holland who will help you design a lens from scratch. And now that they've got up to about 17 labs with different algorithms for multiple lenses, and I think coming soon are the soft and, well, hybrid's already there, but soft's coming. It's going to get better and better and better and better. So that's kind of my resume on the case and how we are really, really thankful for the team for helping us out on this guy. And more importantly, Sean is really helpful. He was 14 when we first saw him. He's now a qualified teacher wearing the lenses on a regular day-to-day basis and managing life. So yeah, thank you from us and thank you from Sean.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I'm picking up. Give me a moment. Meanwhile, I was reading a question from Stephen Matthews. Was the haptic on the resulting lens toric? The thing with this lens, and I will move on to the next slide, which is going to explain it a little better. When you have the standard Zen lens design, you can order a lot of APS, so a lot of toricities, but only in the edge of the lens. So the optical zone, the limbal clearance, the smart curve, they all stay spherical. But what Brian already told is that all the eye was very toric. So we needed a lens having toricity in the limbal zone. And that was at the point where it was actually Jason Jetlika came up with, yeah, I just designed a new lens. It's called the BT, or nowadays by elevation. And in that lens, we keep the optical zone spheric, but all other parts, all other sections are toric. So that's what we've done. And here you see a visualization, what the problem was with the classic Zen lens design. So in the upper image, you see that there was too much push where the lens is landing on the eye. And when you were looking vertical, it was only touching the eye at the very edge of the lens. So I hope that's answering your question. I will move on. Image acquisition. We rely on, and meanwhile, I will be checking if there are some questions. Yeah. So, yeah, I will continue. We rely on fluorescein to take an image and opening the eyelids a lot because we want to fit scleral lenses. Sometimes when you're working with, for example, the Boston side lenses, you want lenses up to 90 millimeters. So we need the eyelids open very wide, a lot of fluorescein, and we can take the image. This is the aligning process. So we have 2 white dots, Purkinje dots in the center. You align them with the red circles, and you have 2 white dots on the sides, which are on the right side near the limbus, which are used for the focus, so going forward or backward. And here I have a video how the process is going. Let me start it.
Hey, Reinier, let me interrupt you for a second. When we get done with the video, let's kick it over to Dr. Leonard. He was next up.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually this video is about 30 seconds. And in this 30 seconds, 3 images are taken. So what you see happening is we have a second person yanking open the eyelids. The operator is taking the image. So the image acquisition itself is very fast. It's just a split second. And it only takes the time to prepare the patient to instill the fluorescein. And that's most time consuming. Okay, and now I have to move on. Barry added that you have me playing with the speculum. And Barry, feel free, interrupt.
Yeah, I was answering a chat there. So.
Yeah, but you have your own technique how you take your the image. So feel free.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, so we have actually had the best success, as I wrote there, we're using an operator and then the staff to open the lids wide, and we use finger cots to get a good grip. The other earlier you talked about the fluorescein strips. We've also have been making a viscous solution using the Blink gel with fluorescein infused, and that seems to be getting really good results also, which you'll see coming up.
Okay, I will move on. Are there more questions about the image acquisition? Rubikala Prakasam asks, why fluorescein to acquire images? We can not capture an image of the sclera. So to take an image of the sclera, you need fluorescein to get a scattering light. Are there more questions about image acquisition? Stephen Matthews asks, any indication about scleral molding from the fingers? I would say none at all, because we recommend using the orbital bone. So you grab the eyelashes and you really pull them down to the orbital bone. And at the moment that you start touching the eyeball, the sclera, the patient is moving back anyway.
Very nice.
Thank you, Brian. Emmanuel Mocchiardini, is better to use viscous solution with fluorescein? Yeah, that's what we recommend. We recommend a solution containing hyaluronic acid. We'll skip to Arnold's question. Art Wong, you have a question about impingement. I will talk about it a little later because I have an image showing this. Ellen Deschamps, can you repeat your question because I don't get it?
Maybe what percentage of hyaluronic acid, maybe?
Ah, okay. The Blink bottle, I'm just checking it right now. I'm not sure how much it has. I don't know. In America, we recommend Blink tears. That's
the Blink gel. The Blink
gel for you. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I will move on to the next topic. That's the video again. So, data analysis. First of all, the scleral profile map. This is a map we introduced last January at the GSLS in Las Vegas. We already have two other maps, which I will discuss later on. But with the scleral profile map, we try to make the process faster. So giving you an easier way of seeing how this sclera and the limbal zone looks like. So we just trimmed it down to 4 options: spheric, toric, quad, and irregular. And what does it do? It is analyzing the 4 quadrants of the eye and comparing it to each other. If there is a difference larger than 100 microns, it is using that as to choose between spheric, toric, and quad. It also is analyzing it ring by ring. So it might be that what you see in the last image, that some rings show that it is spheric and other rings are showing irregular. So each ring is compared. Does it follow the rule? So is it below 100 microns or is it above 100 microns? And at that stage, it is distinguishing ring by ring. How does it look like? So what you see in this last image is the limbal zone is rather spheric, but if you look at the sclera, it is irregular. And we have a flow chart, which I've been working on, helping you to speed up the process of fitting the lens, because I'm rather technical, so I like to jump in the technical maps and details, but if you trim it down, you can say if I have these blue rings, so it's telling you it's spheric, you can move on straight away to an automated first lens fit algorithm.
My horse is winning, by the way. My horse is winning.
Right. Lots of quid coming.
Are they not in a complete lockdown, Brian? But that's something else.
It's a virtual horse race, so it's absolute CGI, nothing more. It's amazing. Carry on.
I will carry on. Meanwhile, I will be checking if there are some questions. So Ruby Kala is asking, is color coding similar to corneal topo? No, definitely not. This it's just dividing into one of the four options, just giving you a quick feeling for what kind of scleral lens will be, what I need. FLF means first lens fit. That's the name we gave to our automated algorithms. That was a question from Aaron Wolf. Tom Arnold already answered it. I believe that in most of the cases, let's say 60–70% of the cases, a toric or even more a quad specific will be the outcome. Barry, does that agree with what you see?
Yes, we're doing torics or quads on 90%, if not 100% of fits. Yeah.
Yeah. And spheric, you hardly see it ever, I believe.
No more. Yeah, that's the old days.
Yeah, and irregular, I would say that's most often when you're seeing an eye with a pinguicula.
Correct. So you still might have that toric or a quad specific, but then adding in vaults or channels or notches or things to take care of those other irregularities.
Thank you. Yeah, and what you notice in this flow chart is at the moment that it is telling you the scleral profile map, it is irregular. So the yellow rings, it is telling you consult your lab or the Eaglet Eye team. And why is that? Because there are so many solutions depending on the lab. You're looking at Senlens, they have microvolts. Looking at Blanchard, they have a recess, and there are Boston Sight, Smart Channel, so too many solutions. So there we have to work, customize it lab by lab. I will move on to my next slide. Choosing between toric and quad. That's a little more complex. I would say that the scleral profile map is recommending most of the times quad specific, but keep in mind that this tool is assuming that you have a perfect centering lens. Is it always required? I think that at the moment that you're designing a simple spheric optical zone, so that means no front cylinder, no multifocals, no wavefront aberration control, a certain amount of decentration is acceptable. And at that moment, you can still consider going for a toric lens. My rule of thumb is that you're going to check the cord length at 15 millimeters, and you're checking the T-sec and sec difference, so the temporal nasal difference. Most often the nasal side is flatter, so less sagittal height, and that is pushing the lens in the temporal direction. But below 400 microns, so below 0.4 millimeters, it is still acceptable in most cases. So at that moment, you can still consider going for a toric lens. And now I'm going to talk about the biosphere map, because this is the map we have been showing for the last 5-6 years. And here you see the overall shapes. The first image is showing a prolate, so a very normal, healthy eye. And you can see that it is looking more or less symmetrical all around. A toric eye will have a flat meridian, in this case with the rule, so the horizontal meridian is the flattest and steeper in the vertical meridian. Here it is showing a central cone, so you see the red dot coming up, and the rest is looking rather irregular.
And that goes back to the question Ruby had asked earlier. It was a color coding similar to corneo topo. In these maps, the color is telling us. In the scleral profile, the colors are just to highlight stuff. So, you know, that's correct. Those blue are very deep and steep, and those reds are more of those flat areas.
And meanwhile, I have the time to read more questions. Chian's question, what scleral lens design would you both usually fit?
Yeah, I'm writing the answer, guys.
Sorry, what did you say, Brian?
I'm typing the answer in chat, so I'm going to put it in.
Okay, perfect, yeah. And I'm checking if I've been missing some questions. Stephen Matthews, how much of this information can be acquired by observing the blanching pattern under a trial lens? Ooh, that's a very hard question.
Well, I'll jump on that if you like, because
yes, please.
That's the way that we've all done it, and I've did it for years, and we did a pretty darn good job. But, and like what I'll show in the case I'm going to present in a bit, is things are a lot different than we actually could observe. So a lot of times you'd say, oh yeah, there's that blanching area, I gotta flatten it out in that area, but then what's going on in the other meridian that we seem to ignore? And that will affect how the total lens fits. And so we do want to observe, our eyes are still good and we have that experience, but this system takes that guesswork and that seat of the pants artwork that we've done, and we're going more to the science and the actual what's really there. And that's what's opened my eyes in these last couple of years of working with the Eaglet, is how different my fits are now compared to the past.
But reducing your amount of refits.
Correct.
I am moving on. Okay, yeah. Next slide, give me a moment. I'm going to skip this slide, but I will move on to this one, because the slide before I have been showing the overall shape, so how does the complete eye looks like, but you also have these local elevations. Most often you're talking about a pinguecula, and you see them coming up as a red dot, or if it's if it is an extreme case, it is showing up white. So red is high and white is even higher. And now we're going to talk about tangent angles. the difference between the bisphere elevation map and the tangent angles map is that they are sensitive for different things. The bisphere elevation map is very useful for seeing local elevations like the pingueculae, but it's good for seeing is this a spheric eye or toric eye, but it is not so good for seeing lens imprints and what is the difference between the nasal and the temporal quadrant. So what you see them compared here. In the left image, you have the colors are indicating something completely else. Blue means that you're looking at a flat, so a horizontal plane, and if it's red, you're looking at a very steep angle. Yellow and green are somewhere in between. So what you can see in this image is that 3 quadrants are very steep, and the nasal superior tangent angle is much flatter. So you're looking at nasal lift, which is slightly superior as well. And here I come to the question asked about 10 minutes ago. So can you see this lens imprint? The third image is showing these, arc-shaped, ring-shaped appearance. Sorry, what did you say?
Nothing.
Oh, sorry. So if there is a scleral lens imprint still going on, most often the landing zone is flattening the angle at that point. So you can see this green-yellow appearance, which is the landing zone of the lens flattening the sclera. How long do you need to wait until you can start refitting? It really depends on, on too much actually. It depends, was it a very bad fit or was it just so-so? Was it a very large lens or a very small one? Because smaller lenses tend to settle a little more. So at that point, I always recommend, if it is possible, to take at least 2 days off. Yeah, you have to negotiate with your patient if that's really possible. Barry, how do you handle scleral imprints? Well, what is your recommendation?
Yeah. What we try to do, I mean, myself being a keratoconic myself, I know, I can't tell me to go without my lenses for a week. I can't function, and that's how our patients are. So what I try to negotiate with them is say, take your lenses off Saturday afternoon, if or if it can be Friday afternoon, if you could take, if your weekend can be like we are now, all sitting around at home, and then come in Monday morning first thing. We'll do the Eaglet, do their fitting, and then put their old lenses on and let them go. So I really strive to say, take them off that Saturday afternoon or Saturday night, no lens all day, then Sunday, and then they come in Monday morning and do the work, and then they can go back to their daily activities. That seems to work well.
Yeah, I've done it where I've done one eye one week and one eye the next, so they can function with one eye compared to the other one. And there was a discussion last week about, and I can't remember who it was that said, but preloading, I think you, Barry, preloading the functionality of moisture. So putting a lot of drops in. This is Kyriakos, I think. And basically for that whole weekend, the eye that's clear of the lens drops and drops and drops and drops. So when that guy comes in or girl comes in on the Monday, let's say, then that eye is super lubricious and super easy to get the impression. And then you do the same for the other week.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Barry. David Berko has a question. Do you think that this instrument can be used instead of OCT? I will start answering. We are in another, when you're doing the whole fitting process, we are in the absolute beginning. You take the Eaglet scan, and you use it to design a lens. The OCT is later on, at the moment that you have to check the lens, maybe readjust it. So we are really the first step in your lens fitting process. Both our guests do have both systems, so let's ask them. Brian, you first.
Instead of an OCT, no, because the OCT has so many other functions in my mind. I mean, not least of which, looking at the retina, we're all guys that deal with the windows, but actually some of us have to look at the wallpaper on the back of the room. So we're kind of needing the OCT for day-to-day general patients. We're not a completely only contact lens practice where everything, babies to grandmothers to, front to back of the eye. So no, we need an OCT full stop. And it happens to take great anterior functionality for scleral fits, but that's sort of post-fit, not pre-fit, really.
Barry?
Yeah, well, I know there are people out there that are using OCT to graft the cornea like the Eaglet does, and I know there are people that have designed lenses that way, but it has nowhere the same amount of information that the Eaglet will give us for cornea and of course, the sclera. So again, post lens check, which will show is great with the OCT.
Yeah. Okay, I'm moving on. So, and now I'm going to show how the automated fitting algorithms work. And here I have a video again. Let me start it. And what I'm showing here is the process, how you can, without checking all the technical stuff, how you can design a lens. So you have been taking the scan, you're going to check the scleral profile map so you have a feeling, how does it look like? Well, it was showing blue rings. So it is telling you this is a spheric looking eye. So you can, following the flow chart, you can move straight away to the first lens fit algorithms. And I will speed it up a little. So I move on to first lens fit algorithms. At that point, I will check the HVID because the HVID will help you choose what lens diameter. Here I'm showing an example from the ZenLens. ZenLens is recommending HVID larger than 11.8. Move to the larger lens, so the 70mm lens. So I have to select the 70mm. And at that moment, you just hit calculate. That's going to take about 30 seconds, and it is coming up with the recommendation. So fairly simple. Just check what type of eye, check the HVID, select your lens, and hit calculate. And here you see that it is coming up with an APS, and APS 1 is referring to the flat meridian, and APS 2 to the steep meridian. And here it is telling you both a steep 1 or spherical lens. I will show one more example. And so here we see scleral profile green red. So we're looking at a toric eye. I'm going to move to the first lens fit. Following the chart, a toric profile. So I can move to the first lens fit immediately. For this example, a Blanchard lens, one fit matte. I skipped the part of the HVID checking. I hit calculate and I have the best fitting lens. And here it is showing edge 1, so the flat meridian plus 200, so 200 microns flatter, and edge 2, 50 microns steeper. It is as that simple. The possibilities for the first lens fit algorithms, it can help fitting spheric lenses, toric lenses, and quad-specific lenses, and it is recommending If it is possible within the lens, you can use it to find the best fitting base curve, the best sagittal height of the lens, and the best landing zone. As already mentioned by Tom Sean, we're lab independent. This is the whole list we have on board nowadays, and we're extending almost every month.
Now I'll go into a little more detail in a little bit.
Sorry, what did you say, Tom?
I was just saying I'll go into a little more detail on the lab neutrality and the lens designs we have in the algorithm in a little bit.
Yeah. Now I will check if there are still some questions unanswered. Art Wong is asking, does the fitter choose the design or does it recommend the best design? No, we're not going to recommend you a certain lab or a certain design. So you still have to select, are you going to work with a Zen lens or the One Fit or the Boston side lens? That's really up to you. We're never going to choose in that way. Reading through all the text, David Perko. If you're still going to need an OCT to confirm the final tear layer thickness, I understand that the ESP just shortens the fitting time. I think this is a question you can answer, Barry.
Correct. You're always going to look at the lens. You know, the microscope. We hope we all can see the final sagittal depth with our microscope. It's always nice to double check. The OCT for me has fine-tuned my eye and calibrated my eye under the microscope to looking at that and also looking at edges. But it's not a necessary thing.
Thank you. There was one more question. Oh yeah, Paul Kuzi, does it recommend the best overall diameter? And no, it does not. You can do this based on the HVAD, and that's most often used, but there are some exceptions where you do not want to follow this rule. For example, you have a pinguecula rather far out, then you can consider designing a very small lens, so you're going to avoid the pinguecula. Another reason can be at the moment that you're having a very extreme toric eye, you want to go smaller as well, because it's going to have less rocking. So we're not going to do this just based on the HVAD. So far, we're not going to recommend the overall diameter. Alex Gilman, will you choose? Sorry.
Tim, there's a big issue trying to balance practitioner preference with the instrument itself making the recommendations. On top of all that, we've got to maintain our lab neutrality, so we don't want to get in an argument with any of the labs. Well, why did you pick this one over that one for that scenario? So we're trying to make it a lot more efficient for you guys, while at the same time allowing you to be the decision maker. So.
And Tom, check it when I'm taking too long for answering all the answers. But I will go on for a little. Alex Gibberman, you will choose the lens. Oh, that's answering the question. Yeah. Fred Gagnon, I understand that the software selects and chooses the appropriate sag according to the lens diameter. That's correct. But can you select a sag depending of the diameter of the lens you want to try by looking at?
Well, yeah, you can plug in on. You don't have to go to the calculator. You can plug in, as we know, the chord length of any lens, and it'll calculate the sag.
Yeah.
So you can do that independent of the manufacturers or anything, just in general.
Art Wong is asking, is there a blog for ESP fitters to join? Tom answered it already. Okay, I think that I have been answering all the questions. So Barry, the stage is yours, your case, and I will go to the next slide.
Okay. So good morning, everyone from California, Southern California. So this case is just a classic type of thing. We see a lot. This is a 39-year-old female, a general manager of a big luxury hotel out here in LA. She's got post-intacs on her right eye and a cone in the left eye, just a cone, more pellucid-like looking shape on the topography. And she's unhappy, poor vision with glasses, and she'd tried contacts and stuff, so she was referred in to me. And what we did is there's the Eaglet the scan, and what's amazing, this is how it works, day in and day out, is the Eaglet, predicted a sag of 4950 on the right eye. The ultimate lens was a 4900. But what's even more importantly, what helps a lot is when I go to put on that diagnostic lens, right now we still are going to put a diagnostic lens to calculate the power, and that's really what we use it for. It's going to tell me what lens to get out of the diagnostic kit, because if I think back to before my Eaglet, I would take a guess and I'd look at this profile of the eye and try to say, all right, this looks pretty good, and I put a first diagnostic on, I go, oh, it's way too flat or way too steep, and then go to next and maybe another one, and you're already wasting time and beating up the poor patient and all that. So your first diagnostic lens is going to be exactly what you want, depending on which manufacturer, what the sag, which diameter you chose, all those things. So you put it on, and in this case, the right eye, it predicted a 4950. We ended up ultimately with a 4900 lens on that. The left was, it predicted 5100, and we ended up with 5000. Now, I also like to fit about 200 microns, and I think the Eaglet's thinking more about 300 microns. So I'm pretty much always adjusting down a little bit from there.
We follow the lab recommendations as far as.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but you can see how accurate it is. And then the other interesting part for me over the years of using it, in this case, shows I can't tell if that's the left or right eye.
This is the left one telling you steep 4, step 10.
Yeah. So my presbyopia is getting there. But what's amazing, it shows a very typical 150 micron difference in the major meridians. But what we normally think is sort of, flat 100, steep 100. In this case, this patient, she's steep, in this case, 4 steps, like 120 microns by steep 270 microns. So the difference is there, but everything is much steeper than I ever would have accounted for by looking at a lens. And the biggest issues for me in the past, especially in the horizontal meridian, you would sort of say, well, this looks real flat or real steep. And it was really, for me, and I think a lot of fitters, to judge what's going on in that opposite meridian. And if I didn't steepen it up, like in this case, 270 microns steep, which in the old days I never would have gone that steep, the lens would never sit down to where it really should. And you would try to keep flattening horizontally more, and it would still never come down to its right place. In this case, that first lens fit became, again, we were exactly where we wanted to be in sagittal height, exactly where I wanted to be in toricity. And the only reason in this case I ordered a second pair of lenses was to add a front toric. I'm usually hesitant to add that front toric or my microvaults or channels on the first lens, because again, we can predict it's going to sit at 30 degrees, and you can see that where her sort of angles are there. But it's, we're never going to be exactly there. And I found that it's better to go with that second lens to add that front toric or the other microvaults when we know the exact positioning of the lens. So here we've done, 2 lenses, very quickly done, and got her to, each eye was 20/25 independently, and in OU she was 20/20 vision. And it really gets us to a good place real quick. There's, I think, a couple other slides you can see. We went to use, here's the OCT was used to check. Also in the microscope, it might be hard to tell in there. You can see your intact, but you can actually see the front surface of the lens, the back surface of the lens, the spacing between the cornea, and judge your sagittal depth and your edges, just like always. I still always want to trust as the doctor to make sure it's fitting and it's going to be healthy and physiologically healthy for the eyes. But we noticed that, a couple of years ago when I started making lenses like this much differently than I had in the past, one of the consultants asked me one day, he goes, "Doc, we've noticing your fits are very different from everybody else's and very different than they sort of used to be, but we also noticed you're not reordering lenses, and you're about half your lenses are one and dones. And the second are just minor things, maybe minor changes in powers and that, and that's the Eaglet really can get you to that point." So I don't know if there's any questions you could write chat there. I think that describes it all.
Let me see. Art Wong, weekly online meeting link. That's something for Tom. Yeah, Tom Arnold agrees with you that he's doing much more torics nowadays. Is there still anyone with a technical question for Barry?
And this works, in the lenses. We talked earlier about the lens neutrality. This happened to be a Zen lens. We all have our favorites. I find it just as accurate with the other lenses. In my case, I'm using a lot of Boston sights and some of the Synergized VS and the One Fits. And the algorithms are very accurate. We fine-tuned those over the years, and they're just work well across the board.
Tiffany asked, how accurate do you find the haptics are in the algorithms?
Very accurate. And again, that, Reinier has made these algorithms. We've slowly, by looking at post lenses, he's done some small tweaking, but you think about a Zen lens where each step is only 30 microns. So in the case we talked about before, it said steep 4, steep 10. I went steep 4, steep 9. Would it have looked any differently with steep 10? Probably not. You've got to really make some big changes, 100, 200 micron difference to see those out there, but it's very accurate between those. So yeah, when you someone else, Emmanuel, asked the difference in elevation between steep 4 and steep 10. In this lens, there's a 30 microns difference. So in that case, you've got 6 steps, which would be 180 microns difference between those two. In that example.
Yeah, and you're hitting the limits of the lens because steep 10 is the steepest possibility they have.
In that one, yeah. So then sometimes you need other lens designs that can go steeper or flatter, and that's the beauty is, as the doctor, we're going to choose which one we feel for this patient. Earlier there was an example of a nasal and a temporal pinguecula. Unfortunately, right now, like a Zen lens, for instance, can only do one side. They're going to try to do 2. A Boston sight can make 2 channels. So if I see that, it's going to help direct me which type. Also, the One Fit can do it. So sometimes those are part of your decision making.
Thank you. Waiting for Stephen, who's still typing, and otherwise, Stephen Matthews, over how many years?
Stephen, I'm going to go into that with my return on investment.
Yeah, I will move over to you. I was, will stop sharing.
All right. We're pushing an hour now, so I'm going to try to really move. So I'm going to do the wrap up, and what I'm going to focus on is I'll run you through the reality of lab neutrality, and I'll talk to you about how we work with our lab partners. Then I'll run you through a quick example of a return on investment. Then Arnie will step up and talk about the typical installation, and then I'll quickly wind up with next steps at the end. In addition to all this, I'm going to email to everybody that's registered for this webinar webinar, my standard introductory email. There's lots of links, lots of information, so it'll get you started for sure. So look out for that one. And so here we go. We have more than 40 lens designs and growing. The majority of labs worldwide want to work with us, and there's only so much we can do so fast. So we've got to put them on a list, waiting list, and work our way through it. And they want to have algorithms on our device, obviously. And so let's take a look at the list. I hope you guys can see that. This is the list in its entirety. I will zoom in and let you read it at your leisure. I'm not going to read off every lens. I'll slowly scroll down. So got a lot of Blanchards, a lot of Alden, Bausch, Senlens stuff. We've got Boston Sight in their image guided scleral, which is on the forefront of the interaction between the Eaglet and their software, I believe. And then here we are finishing up. For those of you in Europe, we've got Mark Enavoy.
That's the soft lens, by the way.
Yeah. So you can see up here, scleral, hybrid, soft, ortho K, and RGP. So if I could figure out a way to keep that row visible, I would. But so you guys get a sense of what we have. This will be included in your email, so you'll see it again. So back to this. Okay. So you looked at the list. We looked at the list. Let me press on. So work with our lab partners. We have over 17 lab partners worldwide. I've already mentioned that. Most have an ESP consultative experts in-house. In other words, somebody that's been well-trained on working with us, working with you guys when you show imagery from your ESP, understanding the MSR files that you might transmit. They give them all the detail they want. I mean, often you're going to be able to tell exactly what. But occasionally, is that you or Barry?
Trying to mute. Yeah. There we go.
So the vast majority of labs have somebody on staff that can work with you directly on your ESP questions and talk about what you see and what you should consider and blah, blah, blah. Some of the labs even have an ESP in-house, so that obviously helps them get more familiar with it. And sorry for this jumping around. And when we do the install, we'll discuss your favorite designs and make sure you're connected with the experts. So I'm going to talk quickly about the ROI. This will also be sent to you in the email. On average, my example shows relies on the notion that most of the experts and the key opinion leaders with an ESP would agree with, that your average fit goes from 3.5 lenses per eye down to 1.5 lenses per eye. So what we're saying is we're not going to solve every single one, but you're going to go down and you're going to spend less time trying to get to the endpoint of your patients and freeing up much time. So let's look at the example, and I'll buzz you through this one as soon as I find it. Here it is. If you assume, and you guys can plug in any numbers you want. If you assume you're doing 2 scleral fits a week and you're charging $1,500 USD for a fit, and your average time per visit is 45 minutes, that means the average fits are 3.5 per eye or per patient, depending on how you want to calculate it. Your total fit time is 2.5 hours, a little over 2.5 hours. Your revenue per hour involved with this thing is $570. You derive $3,000 in revenue per week, fitting 2 patients per week at $1,500. So if you jump from 3.5 lenses per eye down to 1.5, You're still going to generate $3,000 from those 2 fits, but the time savings is going to be substantial. And the time savings is going to be that in this example, we're going to free up 3 hours per week, which is going to potentially generate $4,000 for you in more patient volume. You're going to jump up to 5 patient fits per week. You're going to generate incremental revenue of $200,000 over the course of the year. Your purchase price of the ESP is 24/7. So you could potentially pay this thing off in a month and a half, 1.4 months. Now, I will tell you there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. So on day 1, are you going to jump from 2 to, or from 3.5 fits to 1.5 fits per eye? I doubt it, but you'll be very quick. Barry or Ryan, you want to jump in on what you think your average fit rate per eye is these days?
It's really tough to say because I haven't really analyzed it. I said I'm not really statistically, mathematically minded, but we see patients less often. And I think probably your figures on the reduction are probably about correct, but I'm going to be fair, I haven't actually analyzed it per se. I bet Barry has. Go on, Barry.
Yeah, well, we found a little over 50%, 54% of our first lens, 1 pair, 1 and done. And then the second is generally, like the example earlier, was a slight change in RX, half diopter here or there, or a front toric or a microvault. And then there's always those outliers, some crazy cases and some of the post-graft ones that you're messing with, like the old days, and it takes that 3 pairs of lenses. But generally, we're getting that over 50% 1 and done. It's amazing.
That's great.
And there is that extra added theatre, because keratoconics like what they see on a corneal topographer, but when they see it actually in the 3D models, which you kind of can do, which is not necessarily super helpful when we're doing clinical fit and algorithming into the lenses, but for a patient to see, oh my God, I realize this is why you're having such challenging fits, or why my lenses have never fitted historically. So I think as a patient theatre and as let's face it, a toy to have in the practice, patients absolutely love it because it's so entertaining to them to see more realistically what's going on.
Correct.
Great, thank you. So Barry, did you see Dr. Desjardins' question?
Yeah, the ScanFit. Yeah, so we're now working, with some of the labs and ScanFit and Aculens and that. We're really trying to take this data and make a free-form lens, and that's going to be the next generation, the next evolution of scleral lenses. And we've gone from spherical to toric to quad specific, and once that whole thing is just a free-form lens, it's going to be pretty amazing. So that's going to hopefully, I don't know when Christine sent, when they think they're going to come out with that, but she's just validating data now, which we're working on. And it hopefully won't be too long.
We're getting pretty close. All right, so Arnie, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about training. Training is obviously very quickly evolved with this virus disaster. So, Arnie, take it away.
All right, thank you. So yeah, this is a consequence of the whole Corona situation that we all find ourselves in, is that we used to come to each practice for in-place training, and of course that's impossible now with all the travel restrictions, etc. So we have just finished the creation of full comprehensive online training, and we'll roll that out with our a couple of our customers that have just been delivered their ESP. And in a structured way, we'll involve the practitioners with a bit of self-study, with documents and videos that we created, but also we do some live sessions with Zoom or Hangouts to do some real coaching and direct training with them, and we feel that we have a system now that will be equally quick for our users to get up to speed. and it will really be a step forward for our company and also for the whole learning method. So we're very excited by this. And this, by the way, is also a shout out to all of our current users. You will receive an email from me in the coming week where you're also warmly invited. If you want to kind of use some of this material for some jogging of memory, some kind of rehash, then you'll be very happy to join in as well, of course. So Tom, it's back to you.
Thanks, Arnie. So let's finish up with the next steps. Typically, we go to the major specialty lens meetings. This is from a North American perspective. So we were at GSLS last January. Tom, Arnold, what is this? Why don't you chat in? What is the status of the ICSC meeting? But assuming it's going off, we'll be there. Vision by Design, and we stop in at the American Academy of Optometry. We don't have a booth, but we're there, and we'll do demos somewhere convenient while there. We can easily set up one-on-one online demos if you want to do that. If that's your next step, we could easily send you a quote to get the ball rolling. And the way you can best get a hold of us is if you're in North America, reach out to me. There's my email address. Or if you're in the rest of the world, the other continents besides North America, Arnie will take the lead on your lead and follow up. So I want to, Tom Arnold said, still holding. We hope so. We'll make final decision by May 1. All right. Good luck. Best of luck. I hope we're there. I hope this thing settles.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I want to thank everybody for joining. This video has been recorded, so you'll have a chance to watch it again. Look out for my email more information about the ESP, and certainly take us up on the offer for the next steps. Let's do an online demo. Let's talk about a quote. Let's answer your questions individually. And thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday, wherever in the world you are. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Barry.
That's fun. Thank you.
And I love all things Sclerals. I love all things Scleral. Anybody can always reach out to me, and I'd love to discuss any Scleral stuff, whether it's Eaglet Eye or not. To keep in touch. We should all stick together.
Barry, are you okay if I throw your email into my your email address into my email that I'm going to send out?
Yeah, email's good, or you can, easy to find on the Facebook pages and all that stuff. Anywhere you guys, definitely put my email up there.
All right.
And me, Tom. So build at BT Optom is all my social media all over the place. So yeah, for sure.
Okay, great.
All right.
Guys. All right.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy.
Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Yes. Bye.